Hey guys, what's up? All right. It's Double Deuce back. Today, we're going to talk about the new TOYAN V8. And we're going to talk about things that we've dealt with some of the past engines and all that stuff. And I'm going to kind of touch base on my version of the TOYAN V8, the Aussie V8, and some, you see that's welded together. Aussie crankshaft, broken crankshaft. We're going to get to the bottom of it today. So stay tuned. It's kind of a nerd thing going on here. So if you guys don't want to, if it's too deep for you, no, it's cool, no problem. But someday, you'll want to know this information. So here we go, guys. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Double Deuce here. So, the new TOYAN V8 is coming out. We've all had a couple of, scary things going on with the L400. But I think if I work with TOYAN and Sterling Kit team, maybe we can abolish a lot of this stuff. However, it's not going to fix what's happened to us in the past. But so, first off, we're going to get to the crankshaft. Okay, this is the first design TOYAN L400 crankshaft. You see I welded it together right there. And I did this for a reason. Okay, I wanted to see what kind of metal this thing was made out of. One day, when the human race is gone, aliens are going to come here to this planet. You're going to find all these broken crankshafts that are just so hard that it's just unbelievably hard. They're going to wonder what they are. So I got a couple of them here. I've even tried to heat these things to annul them to drill them, and I cannot do it. So they are so hard. It's just that's part of the problem with this. They had a great idea on the L400. Okay, they made, most engines have 1, 2 cylinders. This one has 4, with a rotating mass that's astronomical. And at the same time, you have a flat plane crank, which means 2 is firing on one side, and well, I should say 2 on the other, but only 1 fires at a time. So you've got all this swinging weight. Okay, when you have a 180-degree crankshaft like this, they're extremely hard to balance. Okay, not one of these engines, even the Aussie V8, has a harmonic balancer. When these engines fire, okay, it creates a shock that comes straight down the connecting rod, right to the crankshaft. It's got to go somewhere. And when it goes out, there's nothing to absorb the vibration. It shoots it right back in again. Now, at the same time, you've got all these pulses of vibration banging back and forth together. And I watched a military video when I was, a little kid. My father showed me, he was a helicopter mechanic back in the 60s, just before he went to Vietnam. And he showed me, he did the transmission. They did pretty much a lot of they kept the birds in the air, and to keep the guys safe. And sometimes you had to go out and retrieve one, and that sucked. But he showed me a video one time of how steel works under vibration. Somehow, even back in the 60s, as crude as our videotaping was and all that, they magnified a piece of sheet metal. And then they put it through all the vibration ranges that a helicopter would put out. Because now you're swinging a massive blade on the back plus 1 this way. So you have all this vibration that's banging out everywhere. So long story short, this video showed a piece of sheet metal with all the molecules just doing this like worms. The vibration had broken the sheet metal, the molecules apart, and they were just like swimming like worms in a bucket. It was insane to see it. And then they added a simple bolt with a piece of rubber, washer, rubber, washer, rubber, washer on that piece of sheet metal. They did the test again, and the sheet metal stayed stable, flat, no vibration. So now, getting back to the crankshafts, this is a 90-degree crankshaft. This is what comes on all the American cars, and a lot of European cars too. The only time that you'll really see a 180-degree crankshaft where there's two rod journals on one side and two on the other, if it's a really high-performance unit, which is in like your Ferraris and your... Actually, the new Corvette has a flat plane crank, and the Mustang has a flat plane crank in it. Now, these are really hard to balance, you know. I've been through, you know, growing up as a kid, you know, when I worked at GM dealerships, and I've seen these weird cars come in, and they were off to the side. You weren't supposed to talk about them. And what they were engineering mules, all right? And that's what GM called them. It was an engineering mule. I remember one specific car back in 1977, 78, I think it was. It was a black on black 78. It was a 78 Z28 because I removed all the stripes off the car before it had a warranty problem. The warranty problem was it had an all aluminum small block 350 in it. Now, back in those days, we had the opportunity to just put dibs on whatever warranty engines. Once the zone representative came around, wrote them off, we could have them. However, that engine went right back to GM. Nobody got that engine, and you know, but it was really strange. But it spun, you know, two bearings in the thing, one main and one rod bearing, and it belonged to the dealership owner's kid, which I thought was kind of ironic at the time, because we hung out. I rode in that car, and it didn't sound like a small block Chevy. It did not. I mean, you know, like all the Chevys have that thump 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 going on there, and you know, it's kind of a radical idle. This one had like a European rev to it and everything. Now, this is back in 1978. I didn't learn until years later. It was a flat plane crank. Okay, which means that it was not a 90-degree crank like all the other ones have. So a 90-degree crank means that every 45 degrees there's a cylinder firing, and it goes by the firing order. So if you go with the Chevrolet firing order, I think it's, oh geez, I had to burn in my memory. It was 1 8 4 3 6 5 7 2. So 1 8, and then 4 3, and then 5 6 7 2. So the cylinders crossed firing to balance out the vibration, and that right there was a big deal. However, when you add a flat plane crank with a glow plug, or even a 90-degree crank with a glow plug, all right, even this engine here does not have that thumpy, you know, muscle car sound because it runs off glow plugs. Glow plugs do not fire exactly the same time because they have no trigger method. Like if I had a spark plug in this, which I want to do, to put spark plugs in it to actually give it a better sound. Now, if you guys search the Conley Stinger 609, when he has that in his dragster, it sounds radical as hell. You know, it has a massive camshaft in it. It's got a true ignition system. It's got a true oiling system in it. So what I'm getting at is this is the dawning age of all this stuff. Okay, now the first Conley V8 came out. It had a pinned together crankshaft, which means that it was all machined in separate parts, and then they drilled holes and pinned them together. Now, if you ever see any videos of Gary Conley running this thing at all these like supercar shows and dragster shows and everything, he just idles it around. He doesn't get on it because as soon as you jumped on that thing, the crank broke. Now, over time, they've come up with this massive, awesome one-piece steel crank. And these here are really, this crank was actually bent. Okay, you can see I have brass couplers on it and tape and everything because I was trying to retrofit it in a project of my own V8. But this crank was actually bent because one reason. On the very back of these crankshafts, it's just a flat piece of machined area, and what happens is this crank starts running and the vibration, and it starts doing this back and forth. When it does that back and forth, it destroys every single rod end, and it takes it out actually on the upper pin of the piston. Now, yes, I've had this engine for a long time. You've noticed I've never put it in nothing because I'm still testing this engine. I'm trying to figure out why it keeps destroying rods in the thing. Like, everything else on the engine's cool except the rods, okay? And I think what's happening is they don't have a crank flange, and I will put a picture below right now of what a crank flange is. Okay, now you see that this is basically a piece of machined area on the back of the crankshaft that sets in the rear main cap. Okay, the Conley engine has roller bearings in it, which is a great idea. It was actually developed back in the 60s by Smokey Yenick. You know, this guy was a wizard with engines and all that. Just look him up, Smokey Yenick. This guy's come up with some crazy shit. He's worked for GM, Ford, Chrysler, and you know, he created a name for himself. He was the king of cheat, you know. And if you really want a good story on Smokey Yenick, check out his '67 Chevelle. It was the biggest NASCAR cheat car of all times. It was actually 1/3 the size of a real Chevelle. It had a 427 cubic inch Chevrolet engine in it. It was a marine engine. It ran in reverse rotation. And he took a Ford 9-inch rear end, turned the housing around upside down, so instead of having 4 reverse gears, he had 4 forward gears because he left the transmission as it was. And then he bolted a 12-bolt axle cover on the back of it, and it passed tech inspection back then. So he was a smart guy. But getting back to this here, this, like I say, I won't put this in nothing until I make sure that it's going to work. I've already made the painful mistake of putting the L400 in some things before it was actually figured out. But here's the deal. This is what the L400 needs, okay? It needs a simple, you see this is not done, it's prototyped, okay? A couple holes in the top. This is a center support bearing that will go down in here, like that, okay? However, the way they designed this block and the way I see the new TOYAN V8, there's them 2 holes they machine in there. They don't line board at all. They just do it with a CNC machine, which is, it's pretty close, okay? It's not true though. Like, that machine has fluctuations. It has to be within a couple of thousands. So what they do is they give you, instead of 4 bolts on the back of the bearing, they give you 6 on the V8. Now, my simple idea is cut this, okay, make it a drop-in crankshaft. You can actually have these bolted to the crank, drop it in, because there's no way you can get this crankshaft in there because you got to fish it through the back with a center bearing. It's very hard. You can do it. It's very hard though. A drop-in crankshaft should be their new machining procedure. Okay, every engine out there that I know of that is reliable has a drop-in crankshaft. It's very simple. Now, so they take this piece of aluminum and they cut all that out of there. All right, if they would just change their software program a little bit and just do a section here, a section there, a section here, and a section there, and leave that together, and then even if they rough board it with their out of round milling machine all the way through it to make it true, and then you can have a main cap that just bolts to the top and actually back here also. And at the same time, on the rear of the main cap, you make it just a little bit thicker. You put that flange on the back of the crankshaft, and it rides in there, and it doesn't let it walk back and forth. It holds it steady, and being it's such a small engine, you won't even really need anything but a really nice machine surface. The blow-by from the oil will actually take care of the rest of it. And if you actually separate these here, you're going to get controlled blow-by from every cylinder in the engine. It's going to come down that small area where the crankshaft meets, and it's going to suck it around, and it's going to oil the rods. And it's going to oil whatever main bearings that you have, because of the pressure. It's going to try to blow from one side to the other. And these pulses are going to go back and forth in the engine, and they're going to take care of the lower end oiling, where you don't even have to have a splash oiling system. You can still run our nitro fuel and all that with this. However, if you want to convert this to gasoline, then you're going to have to run the 2-stroke oil with it to help lubricate it. That simple. So anyway, I didn't want to make this a super long video, but I wanted to kind of touch base on, you know, how sometimes proven engineering, manufacturing methods work. They've worked since the 1930s, okay? You can pick up a car from 1930. We'll take a supercar, the Auburn Cord. The Auburn Cord was the first car ever to have a supercharger on it. Tell me they didn't go through some hell trying to figure out why that engine wouldn't live. Every one of those, you hammered it down. Once you turned that supercharger on and cranked it up, it would actually shut off, because it blew all the oil out of the engine block and everything, and it took a long time for them to come back with them. But back in the 60s, the seat of the pants, drag racing guys in California and everything, it came back from World War II, they were taking the bus superchargers, the old GMC 671s and all that, and they were putting them on flathead Fords and all this stuff, and they were adding multiple superchargers on things all through the 60s, just like, because we can, But, so, hear me out, Toyan. Sterling Kit, I will get back to you on some of the photos and ideas for the TOYAN V8. I want the TOYAN V8 to be the best V8 ever made, because from what I have seen, just by looking at the rough draft of how they made it, it's going to be a really good, reliable engine. You cannot run these Conley small blocks for a long time because, or the Aussie V8s, because they heat up so bad. They heat up crazy, Now you've added 8 cylinders, and with the L400, I can hammer this engine and it does not overheat. Okay. However, the NR 200 engine from Sisson, when I hammer that, it heats right up and boils over. It actually blows hoses out, and I don't know. I haven't tore that engine apart to see why, but I'm just kind of wondering if it's just the thickness of the cylinder walls inside. Sometimes you need a little bit of aluminum in there, or surrounding the cylinder wall to absorb the heat, make the block take the heat first, and then let the water cool the block down. So anyway, when I get this figured out, and when I hear back from Sterling Kit with TOYAN engine, and like I say, the crankshaft, it doesn't have to be this hard. This is a note for TOYAN. It does not have to be this hard. Because you can see here, I tried drilling that with a carbide steel bit, and after I annulled it for an hour in the heat, and it still would not drill. So, however, you can weld them together, but they're not balanced again, So a simple balance, a little bit of changing to the lower end of their block, the flange on the back to keep it from walking, and a good set of main caps and bearings in the thing, I think will be okay. So any questions, comments, feel free to hit me up. I took the Elantra end video down because I had this really weird comment. The reason I do my videos is to teach everybody. Okay, it's not about my personal safety. That's why I have my name, Dennis Dempsey, on my radio channel. If somebody wants to find me, they can find me. However, the comment I got was kind of odd. It was, I just, I know where you live, and I Googled your house, and for safety reasons, which I understand, the guy was cool. He's trying to help me out here, but it just weirded me out because that was just, you know, kind of, you know, I guess it made me think about things. I hope I don't have any enemies out there, but, you know, but hey, you never know. So I don't know what the deal was. I removed the video basically for one of two reasons. The first reason I removed it wasn't about my safety, because if I'm going to do that, I might as well crawl under a rock and stop doing videos for you guys. The first reason was because, hey, you know, hey, maybe we took it out and bent a few rules, you know what I mean? And sometimes law enforcement like to make examples out of those people. So, you know, just to protect everybody involved and everything, I removed the video. Give me your thoughts on it. I don't know if you've seen the video or not, but it's gone. You know, if you had a chance to see it, the Hyundai is a well-engineered vehicle. It was devised by the guy who made the M-Series BMWs. He quit BMW and went to work for Hyundai and come up with the N, not the M, the N. And then they had a falling out and he left. So you probably won't see too many more Hyundai N's out there anymore, you know what I mean? Because it was just a one-off thing. However, 280 horse, you know, it's insanity, you know, for that car. But anyways, I'm not going to drag you guys on, or, you know, like, share, subscribe if you want. Leave your questions in the comments there, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can, man. Later. Adios.